Good afternoon. I've heard a little noise here today. I take it maybe you people would like to see a three-party America. And maybe you'd like to see freedom in our time. You know, I would too. I really wish the American people could actually see this convention. And I only wish they could have the same experience that we have had of being 2,000 libertarians coming together to think, to talk, to listen, to hammer out our platform, to decide on our future course of action, and to act on that decision. I wish the American people were in a position to compare our convention and the caliber of the members of our party with what they'll see next summer in New York and in Detroit in the other two parties. Why have we libertarians come together here in Los Angeles? Why have we come hundreds and thousands of miles, and all at our own expense? Why? Well, unlike the Democrats and Republicans, it's not for the sake of special privileges. It's not because we want a subsidy or a handout or a government job. Unlike those parties, we don't want to live from politics. We don't want to live at the expense of other people. What brings us to Los Angeles in this largest libertarian gathering yet is our principles. We have something distinctively new to say to America. From now until November 1980, there will be great issues debated, great battles fought. There is the issue of inflation, whose human costs are now apparent to everyone. You know, those people in Washington thought it would never end. They thought they could keep on inflating the money supply forever. They thought they could keep on depreciating the value of the dollar, and that tomorrow would never come. Well, tomorrow has come, and the bill has become due. Inflation is no longer an abstraction to people. It's an everyday, bitter experience. And the people are determined not to permit their hopes for the future and the future of their children to be destroyed by inflation. There's the question of the draft, which once again has become a live issue. The men who control American foreign policy think that by starting with selective service registration, they can sneak in the draft. But there's something they should know. They should know it for their own good. If they thought they had trouble, if they thought they had a fight in their hands back in the 60s over the draft, I can only say this. Wait until you see what libertarians will do to any proposal to reintroduce the draft in America. Then there's the question of the continued harassment and persecution of people for their own peaceful lifestyles. Back in the old days of the old Prohibition, when America was being torn apart by a fanatical anti-alcohol crusade, both of the major parties were too frightened and too cowardly to tell the truth. Today, again, they're too frightened and too cowardly to tell the truth about our vicious and destructive drug laws. But in this campaign, I will tell the truth, that it's time to put an end to these laws. It's time to realize that regulation over personal lifestyles creates crime. It creates human suffering. And it can only be relieved by the elimination of this vicious and restrictive group of laws. And then there's the energy issue, and the attempt to oppose on the American people what has very correctly been called energy fascism. If those in Washington actually wanted to destroy what's left of our free market system, the two-point program for doing so would be, first, double-digit inflation, and then to impose government control over our energy industries. This two-point program is exactly what's happening today. I've said I will emphasize the issue of inflation. Equally important is this energy issue, and we will propose radical free market alternatives to these problems. And then there's the issue of taxes. This is the one that really has the other two parties scared. Taxes, after all, are their lifeblood. Taxes fuel their machines. And taxes have now become not only a burden, they become a blight. We're sick of them. We're sick unto death. We're ready to have a very big tea party. This time the Tea Party won't just be in Boston. It'll be Boston. It'll be Boston to Seattle, to San Diego, to Miami. It'll be all over the country. This scares the Republicans and Democrats, understandably so, because the Libertarians are the tax revolt party. In this campaign, I will set forth a massive tax cut program that will make so much sense to the American people that the other candidates will have to start discussing our issue. We're the tax revolt party, and we're also the party of peace. And there is no question that's more important in the coming election than the question of peace. And no point in which the Republicans and Democrats are really more vulnerable. Both of them, of course, would like us to be nice and forget the fact that the Vietnam War and all of the tragedies entailed was a bipartisan operation. Vietnam War was the brilliant result of the complete cooperation of the other two parties. We're not going to forget that. And we're not going to forget because their current policies promise us more of the same. What I will propose is a new foreign policy. A policy not based on the interests of some of the people and special groups within our society, but based on the interests of all of the people. The road we have traveled in foreign policy for decades is the wrong road. We have found it to be strewn with death, disaster, and wreckage. We have found it to be a road that we should leave, and we should get back to our traditional American policy of non-intervention in foreign policy.
No more war.
This policy is the only hope for peace, and without peace there is no hope. These, then, I think, are the major issues of the coming campaign. They are the ones that I will drive home in my operation, my campaign, all across the country. And I think there's reason to believe that the American people are ready. In California this last year, the whole establishment, from the Bank of America to the unions of government employees, told the people that they were headed straight for perdition. But the people didn't believe it. They followed those two great old men, Paul Gann and Howard Jarvis, and passed Proposition 13. In San Francisco, they have placed in the ballot an initiative to help carry out Proposition 13 and cut the cost of government by abolishing the vice squad. Throughout America, when the apologists for the state speak, they find that now nobody is listening. Each election, when the people think that choice is limited to the eeny, meeny, miny, moe of the Republicans and Democrats, they stay home in greater and greater numbers. Then, you know what the politicians do? They berate the people and said they failed in their citizenly duties. But I have news for the politicians. The people haven't failed. They're just beginning to wake up. Politics today, and more commentators are beginning to see this, is something different from what it was a generation ago or even a few years ago. In that difference lies a tremendous opportunity for libertarians. Voters are more sophisticated, more mature. You could say they've grown up. What has happened is that the mystique of government, the Santa Claus myth of the wisdom and benevolence of our political rulers, of their infinite concern for us, this myth has dissolved. It is dissolved because of the experience that the present generation has had of the leaders of both of the other parties. What is it like to be part of the present generation? I'd like you to consider for a minute a voter, men and women, who next year will be 30 years old. When John F. Kennedy was sending American military advisors to Vietnam, when he started us down the long trek to war and death, that voter was 12 years old. He was 15 when Lyndon Johnson began the bombing of Vietnam, the bombing of North Vietnam to put it back into the Stone Age. When, at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, the police rioted and beat up demonstrators and beat up media people while the whole world was watching, that voter was 18 years old. When Nixon invaded Cambodia, when the students all over the country from Harvard to Stanford were closing down the campuses, when students were being killed at Jackson State and Kent State, that voter was 20 years old, possibly in college himself or herself. He was 24 when Richard Nixon, the leader of the Grand Old Party, was forced to resign the presidency under threat of impeachment. And what have the last few years brought? As this voter who will be 30 years old next year has tried to find a place for themselves in society, perhaps to raise a family, what has been his most recent experience with politicians and with political action? What that person has been subject to is a spectacle of hopeless incompetence, so grotesque, so completely grotesque, that we can only say, in the words of Oliver Cromwell, "You have sat here too long." You have sat here too long for any good you have done. Depart, I say, and let us be done with you. In the name of God, go. So for all Americans, but especially for younger voters, the spell of government, the myth of Santa Claus, has been broken. We libertarians cannot take the credit for this. History broke that myth. But we are ready to take advantage of it, for our new politics will take advantage of this destruction of the old politics. What I propose for a system for the United States is as good and decent and honest and humane and creative as are the whole American people. The name of the system is freedom. Freedom is the genius of American civilization. Other great nations have been born in conquests, mass destructions of people, and empires and subjugation. Ours began with the Declaration of Independence. Ours began with the enshrining of the idea of the natural rights of man. It was founded not on the power of the state, but on the liberty of the individual. That principle of individuality, individual liberty, has had its good days and its bad days in the United States. It's been denied to many groups of people for too long, but the idea has survived. And this is our answer, and this is our hope. At this point in our history, it happens that we libertarians have a better understanding of the meaning of freedom than anyone else alive. We can't take all of the merit for this ourselves because we stand on the shoulders of giants. We stand on the shoulders of Ann Hutchinson, of Roger Williams, of Patrick Henry, of Thomas Jefferson and Tom Paine. We are the keepers of their ideas, and we have a great responsibility because I think really that we are their only heirs today. And so we enter the great campaign of 1980. Many people have asked me, how many votes are you going to get? I answer that this way. At the least, I'm going to get several million votes. But that's not the whole story. If I am permitted to debate with my Republican and Democratic opponents, and I really don't think I have too much to fear from them because they, in part because of the reasons that Roy Child told us about in his keynote address. If I could get the chance to talk to the American people face to face with the other candidates, I think that we could get a vote total that would surpass our dreams. And on a lighter note, I don't want to say the campaign won't be fun. It will be. We've all come to know and love petition drives. Actually, petition drives are my second favorite thing. My first favorite thing is to be stuck in an elevator with Jimmy Carter and hear him tell me how much he loves me. But none of us really loves politics too much. It goes against the grain. It goes against the grain of our feelings and our values. We libertarians live in the voluntary sector of social life, in the sector of creation, of voluntary exchange of goods and values, services, while the politicians live in the area of coercion and force. As far as we're concerned, politics is something to be gotten out of the way as soon as possible so we can get back to the serious business of living. In the campaign we're now entering, there'll be ups and downs. But I ask you always to remember why you are giving your effort and your support to this campaign. Our party has never been a party of personalities. It's not a party of personal charisma. It's a party of principles and ideals. So what you'll all be doing won't be for me. It will be for the principles you hold. It'll be for the people you love. As a certain novelist once put it, it will be in the name of the best within you.
Mr. Clark, you accept the nomination of the Libertarian Party.